Hello, all of you wonderful indie authors. I am Alexa Bigwharf, and today I am really pleased to bring you an interview with Brian Meeks, who is an author and an Amazon ads enthusiast. So throughout this conference, we're bringing you all kinds of ways to self-publish for pleasure and profit. And obviously, one of the best things you can do is sell more books. So to make money.
Exactly.
So Brian, thank you so much for joining us today to give us your insight and help us figure out how we can actually make some money with our books. So how did you get started writing and kind of what brought you to this point?
Well, that story, I'll give you the brief version. In 2010, January 2nd, I was bored. At this point in my life, I hated writing with a white-hot passion. I've never had a course. It was something that any possible love of writing was beat out of me in 8th grade by Mrs. Johnston, who I'll just refer to as the devil from this point forward. The devil ruined any love of writing for me. So on this day, the football game I wanted to watch wasn't until later in the evening. And I was bored. I was wandering around the internet. I found Blogger. Well, the day before, I had had some foibles with teaching myself woodworking. There's an old adage, measure twice, cut once. Everybody knows that. The problem is, what I didn't realize is if you measure twice while watching the bowl game and then cut, you may not get as accurate a result as you wanted. And I had legs of 3 different lengths. So I thought that was funny. And I wrote a post on Blogger because I just happened to have this idea. And again, I wasn't a writer. I then pasted it over to a forum and went back, a woodworking forum, went back the next day, and over 300 people had read the article or the post. 25 to 30 people had left comments saying, this is the funniest thing I've read. I've been here 5 years. I love it. You have to write more. And so that was the start of my blogging. And I blogged every day from January 2nd, 2010 through through March 26th, 2016.
Wow.
So
every day.
Every day. I didn't miss a day in that span. And during that time, I wrote 7 novels. I currently have 14, but during that period, I'd written 7 novels as blog posts, meaning anytime on my blog where I was not writing something about woodworking, I would add another chapter to my Henry Wood Detective Agency mystery series. And so I wrote the 4 mysteries. I wrote a thriller, a young adult, and a Harry Potter-esque type. That was the young adult. Yeah, I'm confusing myself. But anyway, I wrote a lot of books, and I just did them as blog posts, and I put them up, warts and all. I didn't edit them. I just put them up, and then I did hire editors and so forth to polish them up before publishing. But that was the genesis about how I got started in this business. It was not that I was aiming for anything in particular. I was just doing something that I enjoyed, which I think is what many authors, that's sort of their mindset when they start. But then once I started publishing, because I have a background in data analytics, I wanted to make the most of it. And I certainly don't have as many titles as a lot of people, but I've had over $200,000 in revenue from just under $50,000 in ad spend. And so that's pretty reasonable return on investment.
I'd say so. It sounds like you have something that's working that you can teach.
Absolutely.
Now, before we get into the Amazon, it's AMS, which is what? Amazon
Marketing Services.
Marketing Services. Okay. So before we get into that, I just have a question out of curiosity on what you said. Once you published your books, did you take down your blog posts, or are they still out there?
Well, they're still out there. I mean, nobody goes to them.
Well, it's hard to read a whole book through blog posts anyway. So
it is. And so it was more a case of, as I was writing it, because people were reading it as the book was being created, that's when I got my readers. I would write a chapter for A Touch to Die For, put it up, and the next day I'd write another one. And so they were following along as I was creating it. But because it wasn't every day that I added posts, it would be a pretty big challenge to try to read
Right.
the book in its entirety and, so, through the blog post. You could, but my God, the effort, I think most people would just rather spend $4.99 to buy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And have it on one consolidated space.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us about AMS then. What made you decide, I'm going to try this out? I've never used it, in full disclosure.
Sure.
I've heard positives and negatives. I've always been kind of a Facebook ads person myself, but so educate us all as if we know nothing about it, please.
Well, it started out about 3 years ago. Like I said, my background is data analytics. I was a data analyst in the marketing department for Geico. It's an area I have a skill set in. And so at that time I was wide. I decided to because back then you had to be exclusive to use Amazon ads. That's not the case any longer. So I took my Thriller, which I tend to use as my guinea pig on testing. I took it down from being wide, made it exclusive, and ran some ads. Now, I should pause at this moment and describe the way most people get into Amazon ads, because I think it's illustrative of why people fail their first time out. And that's when you go into Amazon ads and you run an ad and it asks for your bid, the suggested range for most people is not profitable. And there's several reasons for that, and I'll get into that a bit more later, but excuse me. I'm recovering from a cold, so there may be an occasional cough. But back 3 years ago, they were suggesting 40 cents a click, 35, 40, 45 cents a click, which is great if you're Amazon getting that much per click. But the problem was I knew that my book at the time was priced $3.99, so I only got $2.75 in revenue. It was a standalone, so there wouldn't be any read-through. So I knew that I had to convert at a certain rate to be profitable, because I did the math. And so if you're getting 10 cents a click, well, then you could have 27 clicks to be profitable. Mm-hmm. But at 40 cents a click, I just knew it wasn't possible. So what I did is I ran my first ad and I bid really low, like 3 cents a click. And that first month, it got very little traction, but it got some. There were some clicks, and the book had sales. And I made something like $20 on a book that typically makes 1 to 2 sales. So it was vastly better. My ROI was 300 to 400%. And so the next question became, how do I scale? So I started testing. And later on, that's one of the components that holds people back, is they don't really dig into the analytics. But right. Because that's my background, I started testing. I upped the bid a little bit more. And again, 3 years ago, you could get 3, 4, 5 cent clicks, which isn't the case now, but that's what got me into it. And I saw more success. And so I pulled down another book and I tested it. And then I pulled down my mystery series and I ran that. And so it was a gradual process over 3 or 4 months where I simply tested at a bid that I knew would be profitable if I could get the right amount of conversions. Now, at that time, my description, I had not learned anything about copywriting, and my description converted at about 1 in 30, which is what almost everyone's description converts at. And so I needed 30 clicks to get either a sale or a download. Now, I don't believe you can really be profitable unless you've optimized your description. And my description is now converted about 1 in 7 to 1 in 10.
Wow.
And that's because of proper copywriting. And that was a later part. But at that point in my life, I didn't know anything about copywriting. I hated writing descriptions. And so I was able to make 200 to 300% return on investment with horrible descriptions and just good analytics. And so I did that. And by about, I guess it was, I just kept ramping things up. And at the time, going back to what I was saying about the way everybody else was doing it, If another author got in, they would, because you are required to have a $100 budget for your ad, they would do one ad. They would put in the bid that Amazon suggested, like 40 cents. Their conversions were probably 1 in 32, 30 as well, TOO. And they would blow through that $100 and lose $70, $80.
Wow.
And they would be out because they don't have the background to do the math, to figure out that, no, you can't bid what they're suggesting. And it's so natural your first time testing something just to do what is suggested because that's the path of least resistance. Sure. And so 98%, 99% of the people who tried Amazon ads 3 years ago did exactly what I described, and they failed. And so that was great for me because there weren't many people doing ads, so I got all the clicks.
Right.
And then by about September, I was up to $7,000 a month. And, and it was I still didn't have optimized descriptions. I had not done any research on optimizing back matter. All that stuff came later. And I quit my day job. And so then, and then from there, I've gone on and written the book Mastering Amazon Ads and done tons more research, but that's how I got into it. And that's also why many people who don't necessarily have my analytics training get into it and do what comes natural, and they fail. And so it's, I hope does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And you've really said a lot of things worth mentioning with recapping kind of that. One, it's a big picture thing. While you can start by just going in and messing with the ads, that really, to do really, really well, you have to have the big picture knowledge, the knowledge of the data, the knowledge of how to price, how to know your click-through rate, and then the copywriting and the description and all of those things are really going to do success.
You're absolutely right. And there are so many misconceptions in the book world because, again, most authors, most people do not have 7 years of learning to be a data analyst. I mean, the guy I worked for, absolute genius, and I had the good fortune of learning data analytics in an insurance company. Geico is pretty well known, and the analysis I did at Geico, one analysis project required 200 pages of VB code to do the analysis. So it was incredibly high level stuff. You do not need to do, if that was like master's degree level analysis, the stuff that you need to do for Amazon ads is like first or second grade analysis. And that's what I want to point out to people is that when I teach about analysis, the things that I'm teaching folks to do are really the absolute beginner level stuff. And that's all you need for the book business because there are very few variables. There's impressions, there's clicks, there's spend, there's pricing, there's conversions, and then read through. And so compared to doing an analytics study in auto insurance, where there can be hundreds of variables, this is really not as challenging as most people think. And so they maybe don't try to do the analysis because their perception of what is going to be involved is vastly different than the reality. They're imagining, rocket science, but it's like 5th grade math.
Right.
And so I want to be clear on that.
Sure. Well, do you think, does it make a difference what genre, whether you're fiction, nonfiction, or across genres? Are there certain ones that do better, or does it really just come down to?
I have seen hundreds of people's data. One of the things about having my own group, which is now up over 4,600 people, is that I have worked with a lot of authors, and from an analytics standpoint, if I had access to all of Amazon's data, they would have all the data. I could analyze every possible genre, and there would be differences, but they are slight. They're absolutely slight. And this is one of the misconceptions people have about their genre is that they say things like, well, in my genre, well, no, it's that they don't understand necessarily how to do the analytics, and they are making their decisions based on what everyone else is doing. The other day, a few weeks back, I heard somebody say, well, I did my description like author so-and-so, and that author makes over $1 million a year, so it must be working. This is a very good example of flawed analysis.
Right.
Because we don't know that there's a causal link between their description and what they're doing. Now, I've rewritten several hundred descriptions for other authors and analyzed their data, and I can tell you that all but a few hundred authors are doing their descriptions wrong. If your description is a synopsis, if it is not proper copywriting, it's converting, meaning a sales or a KU download equivalent, at 1 in 30 or worse. And that's assuming it's priced at $4.99. I mean, I've looked at so much data, and it doesn't matter which genre or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what it's converting at. And the realities are, I would ask on that $1 million a year author, how much did they leave on the table? Because my math would say that, yes, they made $1 million and they left $2 million on the table because they didn't have optimized description and back matter. And so, I mean, I did the math for myself. When I got into doing copywriting, and it was kicking and screaming. There are other authors know this. I would rather write a novel than write a 300-word description. Oh, yeah. It is the most painful thing in the world, or it was. I absolutely love writing descriptions now because I'm sort of addicted to the art of copywriting. Because
well, it's a challenge now, so you can see what's working, what's not working.
And I have some knowledge of the science behind it. And when I didn't, though, it was just, what am I doing? And it was so painful. I put off a launch once. I had everything done. I had the ISBN. I had everything put into KDP. The only piece I hadn't done was a description. It took me 6 weeks of waking up every day thinking that was the day before I finally wrote a crappy 200-word description and hit publish. That's how much I hated it. Now, I adore descriptions. And I did the math. When I finally started researching the copywriting and I started rewriting my description, it took me about a month because I was procrastinating. And at that time, I was able to get my descriptions from 1 in 30 down to 1 in 10 to 1 in 12.
Wow.
And because I keep enormous amounts of data, I looked at the previous 12 months and asked the question, what if I had redone my description 12 months ago? Because I knew all my clicks. I knew my new conversion rate. So it was very easy to do the math and find out what I would have made. I left $60,000 on the table. And so I absolutely know that almost every author out there, and it doesn't matter whether they're making $1,000, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month, or $800,000 a month. Almost all of them are doing their descriptions wrong, and whatever they're making per month could be, take it times 2 or 3, because it's just the science of advertising. I mean, we all watch commercials.
Yeah, and exactly.
We know taglines and things that hook us, and everybody has clicked on clickbait that says, you won't believe what she looks like now. And you know that it's going to be 50 pages of clicking through things to find out the one picture, but damn it, we're sucked in. That's copywriting. And so all of these components, you asked about where authors go wrong and so forth, these are all components of success. And so that was kind of a long-winded thing, but the point of that whole long rambling there was that the most people either don't ask the right questions or they make faulty assumptions.
Right.
And so I'm sorry that was so long-winded, but I get
No, that's fine.
I love this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important for people to really understand the big picture, because I hear so many people with any types of ads like this, with any type of selling strategy, really, like they try one thing one time, it doesn't work. They don't dig into why. They don't look at the big
Yes.
picture, and they give up and say, oh, that doesn't work, and, move on.
You are right. One time is not statistically significant.
Right.
An author friend of mine ran a promotion yesterday, and I've been teaching her analytics. She takes my course. We have a lot of conversations. And if this had been the first time she'd ever run a promotion, she would have concluded that it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the first time. And it was, in fact, she had done numerous promotions. And the problem was she chose to do her promotion on Easter.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Isn't that marketing 101? Don't market on a holiday.
Don't market on a holiday. But again, that's a perfect example of some external component that impacts
absolutely
positively or negatively. And so one sample is not enough to draw conclusions. The other thing is pricing. People have this, I write romance. Nobody will pay more than 99 cents or $2.99 for romance. No, it's not true. It is, yes, everybody in your genre prices it the same way.
Right.
Yes, everybody writes their descriptions the same way. None of those authors are data analysts, and none of them have crunched the numbers. But when somebody goes ahead and raises their price, I consider full price $4.99. I think that's the sweet spot. But honestly, I'm working on a new series now that I'm probably going to write on for a couple of years before I release it. Get 6, 8, 10 books, and then I may release it $9.99 just to do the analytics. And I just don't think that readers care as much as people think they do.
Right.
And so that's another component. If you're running ads and your book is priced at $2.99, you're only getting 70% of that, so around $2.05 after the little bit. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to compete with an author that is getting $3.45 on that book, it's harder for you because you don't have as much margin.
Right.
But the other component is number of books in the series.
Right.
If you have 20 books in your series, you can price the first book at a penny. It just doesn't matter because you make all of your money on books 2 through 19.
Right.
If you've got 3 books in your series, then you probably want to have them all at $4.99. And so these are all things that, this is what I think about all the time, and I would not expect that most authors have done the analytics or the math to really think through some of these components.
So if you were coaching a first-time author, first book, let's just go with fiction genre here.
Sure.
Can you walk us through just a couple of things like tips on how they would want to do their description and then tips on how they would want to do that first ad?
Well, the description, the description, okay, I can give a couple tips, but keep in mind that like I said, I do teach a course, and that's an entire hour-long lecture just on that subject. But some highlights, if you will. The description, if the first line of your description is more than 6 words, it's wrong. It needs to be a hook. It needs to be short. It needs to be something that grabs the reader's attention, because when a person clicks on the ad, or if they find you or organically through just a search, however they get to that description, the first thing they do is their eyes scan top to bottom, that tiny little bit. There's only 3 lines there. And then they hit read more. Mm-hmm. You want whatever is the first thing they see to be so short and such a good hook that, because they're not really reading it, they're scanning it. Right. You want it tiny enough that it registers. And her life was in peril, ... Okay, that's a hook. Why was her life in peril?
Right.
Her life was in peril. 5 words, ellipses. It is, okay, so that registers with the reader. They hit the read more, it opens up. Now, when it opens up, if there is paragraph after paragraph of synopsis, they're not going to read it. They see these giant paragraphs, and the realities are Facebook has destroyed our attention spans.
That's so true.
It is ironic, but the math is clear that if you have a description with giant paragraphs, and when I say giant, I mean more than 3 lines. If it has more than 3 lines in it, it's wrong. If it's a synopsis, why read the book? You just told me everything that's going to happen. But everybody writes synopses. It needs to be hooks at the beginning, short paragraphs, more hooks, short paragraphs, call to action. Let me ask you, at the end of your description for your book, do you ask them to buy? Do you have? Okay.
That I did learn. I did learn.
People do not.
Are too long, but I do ask to buy.
Yep. And that should be short too. That's another thing. I recommend for everybody, get it now. That's not many words. Some people will write an entire paragraph that says something to the effect of, if you love paranormal romance, then buy The Witch and the Cat Who Lived in Northampton today and start your adventure. It goes back to what I talked about with that opening hook. Right. You can't read that like it's one word. And so while that's, fun to write or what have you, it's not good copywriting. Right. Copywriting is not prose. Right. That's another point. If you're writing good prose, if I read your description and it's good prose, it's wrong. 100% wrong. It's not copywriting. They're not the same thing. And so that is some tips. But like I say, it's hard to compress.
Absolutely.
I want to put this into perspective for your readers. I spent the time to do the research and learn all this stuff about copywriting as it applies to specifically books. And it took me a long time, and I'm still learning. And to put that into perspective, I arrogantly enough thought that when I was converting at 1 in 10, that was as good as I could do because I'm a genius. Oh, no, that wasn't the case. Back about 4 months ago, I decided, because I had been doing so much copywriting the previous year, that I was better at it. So I started redoing. I haven't actually finished all my books, but I tried some new copywriting ideas. And sure enough, the description that for over 3 years had been converting, for about 2.5 years, had been converting at 1 in 10, I dropped it to 1 in 8. That's awesome. That is a significant difference. And so the thing about copywriting is, like I said, I left $60,000 on the table. I didn't go back and figure out how much I left on the table from those 2 points either, but I've had over 600,000 clicks. Now, you do the math at getting a conversion once every 30, once every 10, or once every 8. You're paying for the clicks. So it absolutely matters. And so my point being is that don't hire a copywriter. Learn it. This is the most important thing you can do, because copywriting is, you've got that skill set. You are set. But everyone else, it doesn't take that long to learn. And it means literally tens of thousands, and over a lifetime, hundreds of thousands, depending on how successful, millions of dollars to spend a few weeks learning a skill, because you're not learning it just to do your description. 100% of the authors out there do their back matter wrong. Right. They're not using proper copywriting. Nobody thinks about that in the back matter. It's also, what about your email blasts? Are you using proper copywriting for that? If you had that skill, then your emails convert better. You get better openings. People want to read them. What about Facebook? Now, this is, I could talk about copywriting all day, but I use proper copywriting when answering questions on Facebook. I use hooks, I use short paragraphs, and I will write 1,000-word answers to questions in groups like 20 books to 50K. And I sometimes I get 60 responses and 40 or 50 likes and loves on a single response that is ridiculously long. And yet other posts that are like a block of 10 lines in one paragraph, which is people don't read, will get 3. And so this is how I test whether I'm getting better at copywriting, is I use it on Facebook and see how many likes there are. So I will get excited and talk for hours about any of these subjects, but I really do think if a person takes the time to learn it, it will make them money. And even just the concepts.
Right.
You'll be better at having a cliffhanger in chapter 32 that will keep them reading to chapter 33. And all these things will make you better at your craft.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the whole teach a man to fish concept
Absolutely.
there, right? Well, and you also, I think it's important to note the other underlying thing here, and this is that just because you published your book 3 years ago doesn't mean you can't go back and make and revise and make things
Yes.
better and still increase your earnings. And
Alexa, that is a fantastic point. That point right there is worth the price of admission. Anybody that has watched this video through however long we've been talking, replay that bit, because this is another one of those misconceptions that new authors have. And if we can shatter many of those, it will make them less stressed.
right.
And one of them is that my book's been out for 3 weeks and now the ranking is plummeting. I'm so depressed. It doesn't matter. I don't even do anything for my launches. And I'm not recommending that. I mean, this is not in any way me saying you should do nothing for your
Right.
launch. But I don't. My science fiction series has 3 books in it. I didn't even tell my list about the 3rd book. I just never got around to it. That's how little I care about launches. And the reason is because I can turn on and sell books anytime I want. Now, if anybody goes and looks at my fiction books, and I have 14 of them, most of the rankings are horrible. And I just want to tell you that it's because at present, back in July or August of last year, I turned off all my ads and let them all die. And the reason I did that is because I was building the course and I wanted to do research. So there's lots of things that I research, ideas and concepts, my back matter research, all these things. And so I now use my books more as test subjects for different concepts with regards to keyword list building. I mean, there's many, many things that I test. And so I let them all die, and then I will run ads in a specific way to gather data. But that being said, I have a client of mine who, when he came to me, was doing $4,000 a month. He was spending $1,200 on Facebook ads and very little on Amazon ads. After 4 months with just redoing his back matter and his descriptions, we got him to $13,000 a month on 0 Facebook spend.
Wow.
We cut out all of his Facebook spend and improved by $9,000 because I analyzed the Facebook spend and the way he was doing it, which this is, again, I want to be clear, this is not in any way an indictment of Facebook ads. This is, he was doing them poorly. His conversion, his read-through, he had his descriptions, there was many, many things wrong. And those ads, the way he was doing them, were not serving him well. We cut them out. We improved drastically our revenue. And now we're starting, this month we'll spend $5,000 on Amazon ads. And so we are now starting the Amazon ad process, but it took 4 months of work because he has a massive catalog to do all of the other components to get him ready to start spending the Amazon ads. So my point is that when you're worrying about your book's launch, you shouldn't, because you said 3 years after it comes out, you can all of a sudden have a breakout hit. My book, Underwood, Scotch, and Rye, it had its best 10-day span like a year and a half ago, but it was 3 years after it had come out. Excuse me. For 10 days, it was ranked overall between 520 and 980 for 10 solid days. And that was all through a series of product display interest ads that happened to, as luck would have it, 15 of them turned on simultaneously. And I was spending, large amounts per day, but I was getting 300% ROI. And so for 10 days, that book just crushed it. So do not worry about your ranking and all of that. It can all be done later down the road as you get more books out. And you originally asked the question about a new author with 1 book. Honestly, I would publish it and move on. I just, there's not a lot of value in spending hours and hours and hours trying to sell a few copies of your book. You need the other books in the series to have the margin, and you're going to get better as a writer, all these things. Honestly, if your mindset is this first book just isn't going to sell anything, but I want to get it out there, it'll sell later. I think that's a healthier mindset than the people that spend enormous amounts of time trying to be successful with the book right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Most authors have a tipping point somewhere in the 7 to 10 book range. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can find examples of people who come out of the gate and get it, but there's probably some underlying reason that they're not even aware of that caused that to happen. And so if they tell you that, oh yes, I made $20,000 on my first book in the first 2 months, and I didn't do anything but tweet about it. Well, the chances are that Twitter had nothing to do with it.
Right.
There was an underlying component beyond their ability to detect that caused that book to do very well. That happens sometimes.
Right.
And so another person looking at that and trying the same thing will fail because they were unrelated.
So, okay, so then we'll change the scenario a little bit to something that will be more successful. So say you're on your third, fourth book and you decide to dip your toe into the AMS system.
Perfect.
And what's the best approach to do it? Which book do you start advertising, or do you advertise all of them?
Well, initially I would start with book one, and now you've got 4 books in this series. So presumably you've also built a box set. And here's, again, another misconception. People think that if they have a box set, it cannibalizes the individual sales. But I try to teach people that there are 2 different ponds. You're fishing in 2 different ponds. There are people that are voracious readers. They read 5 to 7 novels a week. They don't buy individual books as a rule. They're looking for a box set because they want something that can keep them entertained for the next 4 days.
Right.
That's it. And so if you've got the individual books, they want to read all 4, but they don't want to pay $20, $4.99 times, or $16. No, $20, yeah, $4.99 times 5. They want to buy it for $9.99. And so they move on because there are plenty of box sets. So you should advertise, or you, but the person should advertise their box set at $9.99, which is not going to cannibalize their sales. They're going to get great page reads. They should advertise book 1. And they should closely then watch the results. Another important thing is that AMS ads, is the video portion of this shared, or is it just the audio part?
Yeah.
It is the video. Okay. I wonder, well, I'm not going to mess around with sharing screen, but when you do Amazon ads, there's the ACOS. And if I can get this message out to you, the ACOS is wrong. The estimated sales are wrong. There's nothing based on reality or even close. If you have, I have ads with an ACOS of 500, 800, 2,000.
And what is ACOS?
ACOS is a number where they look at the amount of sales you've had according to that report, and they look at your spend. So in theory, if the report was accurate, which it is not, if you had $10 in spend and you had a box set priced at $10, because the math is easy, then the ACOS would be 100%.
Okay.
But there's several things going on here. So then the new person in Amazon ads would say, okay, so I only make 70%. So my profit is I need an ACOS at 70% or below, which is true, except it doesn't count page reads. And it's not accurate. If you've got $10 in spend at, say, let's say 10 cents a click, which would be 100 clicks. Even if you've got a horrible description, it is unlikely to go 1 for 100. You probably have 2 or 3 conversions. They may be KU downloads. They could be other sales that are not going to show up on the report and may never show up on the report. And so A new person will often make horrifically bad decisions because they use the AMS report as their tool for making decisions. And you just simply can't do it. I tell people that, and again, this is me based on talking with hundreds of authors, and they will reach out to me on Facebook and chat, and they will say, hey, I just killed a bunch of ads. Can you look at them and tell me if I did it right? And so then I look at their data, and the answer is always no. No, you terminated ads. These were great ads. And you know what? Look at them in 2 weeks. Some of those sales that aren't there yet are going to show up, and you're going to feel silly. Other sales will never show up. It just doesn't catch them all. And so I tell people, if you look at AMS, ACOS, and you make decisions, your children will stop loving you, you will gain 35 pounds, and probably get gout.
That's pretty harsh.
So just don't do it. But this goes back to, again, this person that has 4 books. They need to advertise book 1. They need to have a box set. They need to do a proper description. And they need to track their data every day. And they need to look at their sales and clicks from the AMS report. Or not sales, I'm sorry. Their impressions and clicks from the AMS report. And compare it to the KU sales and the KU page reads, and they need to take those page reads. Say it's 1,000 KU page reads over a period, and let's say their KENPC number, which is the number of pages you get if somebody reads your book in its entirety, is 500. Then that is 2 downloads, 2 equivalent downloads. Worst case scenario. But here's another concept. If their KENPC is 499 pages and they have 1,000 page reads, then worst case scenario is they have 3 downloads, because 499 and 499 is 998, and those other 2 page reads could not have come from one of those first 2 people. Now, as far as I say, that's at least 3 downloads. It might be 10 downloads.
Right.
And the people are they're not through with the book. You don't know, which brings up another important point about analysis, is that page reads are a long tail indicator. You need to look at your data over a 30-day span if your book has, say, a 300K ENPC. If it's a 500K ENPC, a really long book, or it's a box set that has 1,400 or 2,000 pages, you may need to watch data for 60 days to get an accurate conversion rate for your description. And again, this is a massive amount of stuff.
I was going to say, that's lovely. My head is like, ooh, I know in your course and in your book, you break this all down.
I do. I absolutely do. And again, it is important for people to understand that any one of these topics, if we were just talking about how do I calculate the conversion rate for my description, it is 5th grade math. It is very easy. And it's, setting it aside, just having a one-on-one conversation, or, listening to, because I have lectures on just these individual things. Right. Listen to that lecture. When you break out just that one piece, it is pretty simple stuff. The problem is people look at the massive quantity of things you need to know, right, and it's overwhelming. But that's the nature of this business.
Right.
You look at all of the things, whether it's what you need to know for publishing, for getting your editing done, for your cover art, there's so many things. But again, that's why I try to, whether it's in the Amazon Ads book or whatever, or the course, I try to break them down into tiny little pieces. And I tell people that setting your expectations is probably the most important thing you can do. Yeah. Because what I just described for that person with 4 books, I'm imagining that they're doing the things that I'm talking about, and they're doing it over 6 months. They are doing a few ads. They're testing them. They're trying different bids. They're watching their data. They're doing them in small chunks. I'm not suggesting that they start off with 200 ads because, people have done that. They use the copy button and they just make massive quantities of ads. And then I ask them, well, how do you analyze it? And they're like, I don't. I just figured I'd do a bunch of them. And if you don't analyze, then you can't learn the indicators that tell you whether the ads are doing well or not. And that's why you want to do it in tiny bits. So all of this setting expectations, it's going to take 6 months to get this skill set. You're going to have to learn to analyze. You're going to have to learn copywriting. But in 6 months, you're going to know all of these things. And if you're still writing books, it's going to mean tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in better results than if you don't take the time to learn it. So most authors, if you talk to them, we love crafting the books. We love telling our stories. And we're not going to stop anytime soon. Even if they're old like me. I just turned 51.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I intend to write more books. I'm going to write more books the rest of my life. And so if I can help people understand that this really is a marathon, and it's more a triathlon. I mean, it's a long race, and choosing to learn the right things early on will sort of optimize your progression, and you will grow more quickly if you do these things now when you're new than if you wait till you've got 12 books. Because again, you might get to 12 books and start making $20,000, $30,000 a month, and assume you're doing it right. And maybe you're leaving $20,000 a month on the table.
Right. So, I mean, if you are one of those people who's been around for a while, it's not too late to go back and fix it and learn these skills and strategies. And I mean, I'm excited about the idea, but it is hard to break from that. Like, you write a book, you publish it, and everybody just wants to have that instant gratification and instant success. But I mean, following these types of programs and slow, methodic approaches allow you 6-12 months down the road to make double, triple, quadruple the amount in sales. Then to me, it's worth a slower start.
It is, and it will be less stressful.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that I honestly believe in controlling that little voice in our heads, because the little voice in my head is an optimist.
Right.
He's in there telling me I'm great every single day. I meet far more authors who the little voice in their head is telling them they suck.
Right.
And there's no upside to that. It doesn't help you get things done. Just like I knew that I wasn't good at description writing. And because that was a fact. I wasn't bashing myself. I knew that I'd never studied copywriting. It was a fact. I didn't know how to do it. Because I didn't know how to do it, I put off doing things and I did it poorly. So that was factual. It was crippling. It would cripple me for 6 weeks. I can't imagine what it would be like to be one of those authors who is constantly saying, oh, my writing's not good enough, or imposter syndrome, because I've never had any of those things. But there's no benefit to it. It doesn't help you out bashing yourself. Why not just say, you know what? People that are not my mom have liked my book. And
so I'm a good writer, dang it.
Exactly. If the person that, if somebody that didn't give birth to you liked your book, just one person that you don't know, that has no invested interest, and they say, oh, I love that story, 5 stars, I can't wait for that. That's it. That's all you need. And for the rest of your life, you should be telling yourself, you're good at this, because it may not be the way you've trained your mind. Maybe you spent your whole life saying, oh, I'm ugly, or I'm stupid, or whatever. It's just not true. You finished a book. That's an accomplishment. You have to understand that, yes, there's 1 million authors, but there's 10 million people with 70% finished books on their computers that will never finish them. You have put yourself in the top 10%, or maybe 5%, I don't know, just by hitting publish. That already makes you exceptional. And there are readers out there. If somebody liked your book, that's all. You should tell yourself you're great. And it will free up all that crippling negative stuff. Is going to go a long ways to helping you accomplish all of these tiny little tasks that you need to be successful.
Amen. Well, I'm excited about giving it a shot now. I told you at the beginning that I don't use them, but I've been watching the discussion because and watching people start to have massive, and I've been wondering, like, how on earth are some of these people making, because you see some of the authors that are self-published authors publishing their, I made 10 grand or 30 grand on KDP this month,
Absolutely.
and you're like, how are they what is happening? And I'm sure that a good, well, obviously keywords, copywriting, all those things that we talked about that are part of it, but a good
But
ad strategy.
most of those authors are doing it in spite of that.
Right.
I mean, there are very few authors with optimized descriptions.
Right.
Most of them, and a lot of them are underpricing their books. They're selling at $2.99.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is staggering how many authors I see that are leaving huge amounts on the table. Which I asked somebody the other day, have you heard of this author? And this is an author that makes several $1 million a year. And they said no. And I said, exactly. I have 6 friends, author friends, making $100,000 every single month. And if I walk down the street in Las Vegas and listed off their names, I bet I would go through 100 people and not one of them would have heard of any of the 6. That's how big an industry we're in.
Yeah.
You can make 7 figures a year and no one's heard of you. And that's, I mean, so when you consider the size of the industry, the point is, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're new and you've just got a couple books, or maybe you haven't finished your first book, and all you want is an extra $500 a month because it would help just the burden of you can get there. It's massive, but you know what? You could get to 2,000 or 3,000 or maybe 10,000. And again, if you can tell a story, writing the book is honestly the easiest part. And
Right.
so if you keep these things in mind, then, and you just keep writing more books. I mean, there isn't a shot clock. This isn't,
Right.
The NCAA finals, which is tonight. The game doesn't end. If you're still writing books, you'll get to success. This is assuming you tell a good story. I mean, if somebody
Right.
just can't tell a story, there's nothing we can do. But if they're to that point where somebody has said, you're good at this, then you can absolutely get to success. It just takes understanding that you have to learn all these things, whether if you've got a full-time job or you've got kids or what have you. It may take you longer
Right.
than somebody that has the ability to do it 40 hours a week. But you don't have the right to say, oh, I'm spending 5 hours a week and I'm not doing as well as Joe, who's spending 70 hours a week, and feel bad about yourself by comparing what you're doing to somebody who has a different situation. Mm-hmm. That's unfair. And I get upset when people, compare their situation. But you know what? Bob isn't raising 3 kids, or right. Bob, doesn't have 2 jobs. If he did, he would be doing what you're doing. And right. So all of it is mindset. And
yeah.
I'm sorry, I just go on.
No, it's good information. And I think it's, and to be quite honest, that's a large part of the reason why the ALLi group decided to make this conference based on self-publishing for pleasure and profit, because Orna said that she's seen so many people just really hard on themselves and really playing the comparison game and really feeling disappointed in, they see your results or somebody else's results and think, I'm never going to get there. And so a pep talk like that is really good. And to look at it from let's get to $500 extra a month and get our strategy down. And then we can continue to grow and grow.
And honestly, getting to $500 a month will be the hardest thing you do. Getting from 500 to 1,000 is vastly easier. Getting from 1,000 to 3,000 is even easier still. Because
I like those.
You have more things. I don't know. Is it appropriate for I created a coupon for your listeners if they were interested in my course.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's appropriate to mention.
Mention it.
Oh, okay. The coupon is WPS. That's it. I just did that because honestly, I was searching for something and I was like, well, what can I use? And I saw your email address is Write, Publish, Sell.
Right. So we'll just throw it in there.
I just picked WPS because it was easy for me to remember and chose that. And then as far as like how to, it's Meeks Masterclasses on Teachable, and there's only the one, and the course is I focus on copywriting for description, back matter, and analysis. Well, the course is built, and we mostly discuss Amazon ads. It's not really about Amazon ads as much as it's about having all of the things properly done so that you're getting the most out of every possible click. Because there's a whole lecture on back matter. Like I said, the back matter, everybody's doing it wrong. But when I changed my back matter, a book that had been the read through from book 1 to book 2 that had been at 42% for 5 years. So, it was a steady number. I had mountains of data. The read through was 42%. I changed my back matter and it's 60% now.
Wow.
That's a huge deal because, like most people, once you get a person from book 1 to book 2, they're going to read books 3, 4, 5. Most of them will read to the end because they're hooked.
Right.
And so getting that first bit of back matter is a huge deal. And so, maybe I can email you a link to the course or whatever. And I don't want to hard sell, but honestly, the people that have been in the course have been enjoying it. It's normally $495. The WPS will save you 30%. There's a monthly payment plan, a 12-month plan, which you can use WPS for either one of those and save 30%. But I long before Orna reached out to me, I'm on the email list for the independent authors. I've been reading your emails for, I don't know how long it's been in existence. How long has it been in existence?
A while. I couldn't tell you exactly the year.
Because I think I've been getting the emails for at least a couple years.
I want to say, let me remember my history here. I should know this. I wrote an email about it not too long ago. I want to say 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
It's gone through a couple iterations, name changes and things.
Sure. But yeah. I've been getting the emails for 2 or 3 years, and you folks are doing good work out there. And
thanks.
There's some folks, and I'm easiest to reach on Facebook. If there's somebody that I just had a person reach out to me, before I was sick, maybe 3 weeks ago, and he wanted to know if the course was right for him. So we just simply looked at his books, and I said, you know what? Not yet. Your books just are, you're not there yet. And I think you have some other things you should be focusing on before you're to that point. So if somebody isn't sure, if they feel like, $350 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just reach out to me and we'll look at your books and
you have a book too, right? So,
Mastering Amazon Ads. That's actually kind of what I'm known for, is Mastering Amazon Ads, an author's guide. It's done very well, and I don't know what it's got like a couple hundred reviews, 4.7 average or what have you. And I think people who buy that book, I recommend reading it, all the way through. And then before you start doing any of the things in the book, go back and read each chapter, but spend a day on it. So read chapter, the first 3 chapters are the how you set up ads. You don't need to read those. But chapter 4, chapter 5, spend a day or even 2 days thinking about it and reread the book slowly, because the people that have sent me emails and said, okay, I was doing less than 1,000 a month and now I'm at 10,000. And I did what you said. I actually read the book 3 times. and it was those later things where it started to click for me. And I hate math. I'm a math phobe. But the way you broke it down, I forced myself. And that was the key. And so, again, most people, I think, are math phobes. And if they read the book, there is a lot of math. But don't dwell on that. Go back through it a second time. And the math itself is pretty basic. Do your listeners know what the formula is for calculating a return on investment?
Probably not. I have no idea.
That's a simple thing. And it's simply, you take the bag of money, imagine a pile of money that you made from whatever you were doing, the promotion, whatever it was. Imagine that pile of money. And you had to spend money for the promotion. And that's hopefully a smaller pile of money. You subtract one from the other. That's your profit. Everybody knows how to get profit. Once you have the profit number, you take profit and you divide it by that smaller bag of money, the one that you spent. So if you can calculate your profit, which is simple, How much did I get from the promotion? How much I spent? That's profit. Everybody can handle that. ROI is just that result divided by what you spent on that, and that will be your percentage ROI. And so it is a simple formula, but people hear it, return on investment. And the problem is all books say, they don't say a pile of money. They use big technical terms, and it scares people. So that's what I try to do in the book, is to break it down in ways that take simple math and teach people that it really is simple. So.
Well, totally off subject here, but I'm in a writers group the other day, and actually somebody, before I had even heard your name, somebody published your book, and it was like, I've read a lot of stuff on Amazon ads, and this is the first one that's actually helped me. And
oh, yay!
So people are talking about you. People are saying it's good.
I honestly, the external validation. I mean, I never write about that in the book, but if a listener is new to being an author and you're worrying about all of these things, like, can I do it properly or whatever, when you start getting fan mail or comments like that, it's such a rush. It is. The external validation makes it feel so good. And I get that, when I hear people say they love my book, it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy, because that's the thing I found out in doing this book, is that I love teaching. And I mean, I did some writing yesterday. I wrote 1,000 words on a new project, but my fiction writing has dropped off because I found that even more than fiction, talking about this stuff and teaching it is such a rush too. Because one woman who, February 24th is when I started my Mastering Amazon Ads and Author's Guide beta group on Facebook. And she was there that first day. And she reached out to me and she said, I have lots of books. And she did. She had a massive catalog. She said, I'm only making $1,000 a month. I know that I'm doing it wrong. I don't understand Amazon ads. Can you help me? She sent me, and I worked with her because it was new and it was a tiny group at that point. And she did what I told her. I said, listen, you have lots of books, but you get to pick one of your romance series. It was 8 books long. I said, that's all you get to work on. Another point is that people try to do everything. I said, you need to learn how to do this. You're going to pick that one. You're going to work on it. You're going to redo your description. I didn't know anything about Backbat at that point. I hadn't done that research. And you're going to do what I tell you, and you're going to do that for 3 months, and you're not even going to think about another book. And she did that. She followed the instructions. Then after that, I said, okay, now you get to pick another one of your series, because she had 2 8-book series. And she had lots of other books too, both fiction and nonfiction. And I said, now you can work on that one. And that's all you get to do the rest of the year. She reached out to me, and remember, she was on pace to have $12,000 in revenue. On December 30th, with like a day and a half left in the year, she had just crossed $200,000 in revenue on $80,000 in spend. So she spent a lot of money.
But she made a lot more.
That's $120,000 versus $12,000. And I mean, we had discussions where it was going well for her. She's like, I'm out of money. What do I do? I said, do you have credit cards? Yes. But the interest rate, I was like, what is your ROI? 300%. What's your interest rate? And so we made finance, and I am not, this is not me.
Right.
To do that. But
he did not just say, go put all your ads on your credit card.
No, I did not just say that. But again, in her situation, with her read through and her ROI, we said, you're going to have to pay for that money, but your return is so much better. Is it worth it? And for her, in that case, it was absolutely worth it. And it changed her life. And so, I mean, this stuff really is important. And now we don't even talk. I mean, we chat occasionally, but it's not about the book business. She's continuing to do all of that on her own. She doesn't need me. And she's doing fine. So it is possible. It just, this business takes a lot of work, but fortunately it's fun work.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much. You have given us a lot of information. I imagine people will be watching this video presentation a few times to get all of the information out of it.
I threw a lot at folks.
But thank you so much for your time and for all this incredible information.
Well, thank you much. And like I said, if people want to check out the course, remember, WPS is your coupon code. You'll save a bit of money. Meeks Masterclasses is where you can find it on teachable.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.